All right, guys, this is anatomy lesson 5.03, where we go over the microscopic structure of bone tissue. Let's talk about what we have going on this sheet to start with. So, the larger structure we have here is we have the cross section of the shaft of a long bone. This is going to be the medullary cavity. Notice how many vessels there are inside of this. We've got lots of vessels, lots of blood supply. The inside of this right here is spongy bone. And then this large section out here is compact bone. And so what these diagrams always do is they take a little tiny cross section and they blow it up. So they're taking this little tiny cross section. So here's the compact bone. This is the membrane. That's going to be the periosteum. So we have the compact bone, and then this section is spongy bone. What they've done from there is they've done another expansion. They've taken a cross section of the spongy bone. They've blown it up down here. And this is a lateral view of the compact bone. So these are both lateral. And I want us to redraw this with a superior view. So we're going to add a diagram over here. Let's do superior view. We're going to want it to draw, you know what? Let's do it up here because we're going to actually be doing a superior view of that. So I'm going to white this out. So up here, let's take this guy. We're going to redraw it with a superior view. I'm going to draw a circle. You notice how there's circles inside circles inside circles, and the center has got a center section. So in between there, we're going to want to draw circles. I'll just do 3. We're going to put little even though I'm not good at drawing, it's actually good for us to draw. Sorry, I didn't pull my hand away there very quickly. And in between then we've got little okay. So that is basically taking this, but we have a superior view. So now let's start off with kind of an overview. So again, up here it says compact bone. So this is all, this wedge is compact bone, and it says spongy bone. Notice that the spongy bone has arches. So from here to here is an arch. From here to here is an arch. From here to here is an arch. Here to here is an arch. And we have arches and they're going different directions. So let's talk about these arches. These arches are called trabeculae. Trabeculae. And these are the arches in spongy bone. The arches in spongy bone. If you can hear a ruckus behind me, that's my cat who's decided to crawl into my closet and knock everything out. Thanks, Master Chief Cuddles. All right, he's back out. Oh, geez, avalanche. Okay, so these arches and arches, if you look at the St. Louis Arch or arches in doorways, arches do a really good job of supporting a lot of weight. The Romans were really good about using arches. It also prevents especially at the ends of the epiphysis of long bones. Those are completely spongy bone. So it unweights the bone. It keeps the bone from being so heavy that, we can barely walk. So they support weight. while at the same time, they're lightweight. So they've taken some of those trabeculae and so do you see this here? This is the same as this. We have the same basic repeating unit of bone. It's just in different shapes. If you look at the structures here, we have a single one, this single structure, and they kind of like cut it and then pulled it up out of the page, is called an osteon. So this entire thing is called an osteon. So this is an osteon, this is an osteon, this is an osteon, and these are all superior views, superior view, superior view, superior view. This is a lateral view. Actually, this one's lateral, this one's superior. So I better be careful with my terms. And we see this repeated again and again, but look at how these osteons are arranged in compact bones. So they've cut one in half here and they've cut one in half here. This would extend down. So we're looking at a little bit of it here. That osteon might come down the whole length of this compact bone. And you've got hundreds of thousands of those side by side. So if you've ever looked at rebar in concrete, it's like 1 rebar, 2 rebar, 3 rebar. It's like taking a bundle of rebar and putting it around the outside of the bone. Well, these osteons are arranged in very unique fashion. And so we're going to label, I didn't want to try to label it down here. It's too small, so I wanted to redraw up here. All right, and we're gonna, I'm gonna color code. So in red, we have a center section, and in this case, you can see it's filled with blood vessels. This is called the central canal. You have to learn 2 terms for this. It's also called a Haversian canal. I kind of see these interchangeably, so I see it both ways, even in textbooks today. I think Haversian must have been one of the guys that discovered this, because sometimes these are called a Haversian system. But that's the central canal. There are layers. So you can see layers, 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer. You can see 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layer, 5 layer. We call the layers basically the Latin word for layers is lamellae. Lamellae. That's what we call them. We have between the lamellae small, from on a microscope, they just look like fracture lines, but what these actually are, and I'm just going to kind of circle them in green. So these are, we draw it down here. They're actually openings that allow fluid to travel between the layers, and these are called canaliculi. Canaliculi. Iculi in Latin means small, and this is canals, and so they look like small canals. But how does, so we have blood supply here. Well, how do we get, we have cells that are living in all of these, and most of these rings are matrix of solidified calcium. But each of these little circles, and we're going to learn those are called lacuna, have inside of them. So here we see a side view. So you're seeing a side view of these. These are the same thing. They have cells in there. So how do those cells get the nutrients they need? The nutrients travel along these canaliculi. So they provide transport for the nutrients and oxygen and gases in blood. All right, finally, I'm going to circle these guys in pink. And I'm going to circle these in pink because they're the same thing. And then I'm going to kind of redraw. So there it is. I should have done it. Why didn't I do it in pink? Silly me. Do And in the center, we're going to put some dots. So they're fluid-filled pools. They're called lacuna, L-A-C-U-N-A, lacuna, and they are fluid-filled pools. We saw these in cartilage too. Cartilage has lacuna. And living in the center of the lacuna, we have, finally, osteocytes. Osteocytes, which just means bone cells. And we have two kinds of osteocytes that we mentioned earlier in the packet. We have osteoblasts and we have osteoclasts. And these guys live interesting lives. The osteoclasts move in the, so they live in these pockets and they go around the edge of the pocket, and the osteoclasts dissolve bone. And as they're dissolving it, the osteoblasts then take the loose calcium and they build bone. So why would your body want to do that? Why do we need to constantly dissolve our bone and then rebuild it? Well, it doesn't just happen a little bit. Over the course of your lifetime, your body will dissolve and rebuild your skeleton 7 times over. Think about it if you compared your skeleton and roads. So if you're on I-75, if they don't do much construction on I-75 over 2 or 3 years, the road gets really rough, it gets broken down, you get potholes, your bones do the same thing. We can get microfractures, we can get areas of weakness. And so what happens is we're constantly dissolving and rebuilding the bone, and it helps us keep our bones strong. And we talked about this, it's also important in regulating your calcium levels in your body. So if you need calcium, your osteoclasts will kick in, and then your osteoblasts will kind of, simmer down. Before we talk a little bit more about this, I can see I forgot something. I wanted to label the periosteum up here. So let's do periosteum. I'm just going to do it in black. That's this membrane that's peeled back. Well, there is an issue, there's a condition you can end up with, and it is called osteoporosis. Osteoporosis. What happens with osteoporosis? Think of, you've heard of it before. So who gets osteoporosis? Did you say grandma? Yep, this is most common in older women. So it's not uncommon for women who are in their 60s, 70s. If they fall, they can break a hip, they can break an arm. This can put someone in a nursing home. Well, why do older women, and it's especially white women and especially Caucasian, they have the highest risk of having weak bones? Well, here's the thing. Women go through this thing called menopause, or some of us have hysterectomies where they take everything out, so we go into instant menopause. And what happens in menopause is females stop producing estrogen. Stop producing estrogen. Guess who needs estrogen to operate? These guys. Without estrogen, osteoblast activity drops way, way down. So osteoblasts need estrogen. And when women go through menopause or they have a hysterectomy where the ovaries are removed, you don't have estrogen. So without your osteoblasts building the bone, you've got the osteoclast dissolving it, but you get weak bones very quickly. So what can you do for this? Well, the first thing you have to do is to keep your calcium and vitamin D levels up as high as you possibly can. But after that, they have medical treatments called Boniva or Reclast. And what those basically do is they come in and they goose those osteoblasts. They wake them up, they kick them in the pants and say, get to work, and your osteoblasts will start depositing bone again. But your doctors have to keep track of your bone density. They do something called a DEXA scan. It's like a special X-ray, and it shows bone density, and they'll monitor that for women as they go into menopause. I guess the only other thing I would mention is these lacuna from the side look the same, but you'll notice the canaliculi are now running vertically, and so we have a little bit of a different structure on the canaliculi. All right, so our takeaways today are we wanted to understand how the difference between spongy bone and compact bone and how those are assembled at the cellular level. So if we go backwards and we start with our osteocytes inside of lacuna, the lacuna are found at the divisions between the lamellae, connected by canaliculi. At the center, there's a Haversian canal. We looked at how the osteons, the whole thing's called an osteon, how in compact bone those run vertically, and in how in spongy bone they go in arches called trabeculae. We also talked about osteoporosis and how that relates to osteoblasts and osteoclasts. I'll tell you guys, you get diagrams on your test from this, and I always remember from year to year, the most missed questions are, I'll say, I'll give you number 1, number 2, number 3, and I'll say, tell me what these are. And that's probably the most missed question. You're going to see that again. So make sure you understand this backwards and forwards, and please email if you have any questions. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good day.